A few years ago, you were stuck with some of your lifts, right? And you and I had some conversations about it, and we talked about, the mental side of it. Has there been anything that you changed drastically
Yeah.
to get past some of those sticking points?
Yeah, absolutely. I realized that one of my biggest holes when it comes to training was my mental game, and I knew that something needed to change. So I actually hired someone who is a sports psychologist, and I started religiously working with him, having like weekly meetings and stuff. Um, and for the most part, well, we worked on a lot of things. Like this could be a podcast on its own,
Yeah,
but sports psychology is not what most people think it's going to be, where you're just opening up like counseling, you're opening up to someone, telling them about your issues. It's not like that. This type of sports psychology is more strategies, it's actual practical applications, it's implementations, it's visualizing each step when it comes to training and competitions, and how you're going to react, and what kind of things you're going to tell yourself, and how you're going to change your mindset, and how you're going to change the way that you talk to yourself and to other people and everything. So it's been a constant work in process for sure. I think,
changing your vocabulary is probably a big part of it,
oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. Reassurance is one of the main key points when it comes to sports psychology. Just constantly talking to yourself, telling
It's
yourself.
weird. And it's weird that makes such a big difference. Kind of seems like bullshit, right?
Yeah, it really does.
Like, you have to, talk nice to yourself in order to hit this 500-pound
It
deadlift.
really
Sounds like
does.
crap, kind of, right? You're
It
like, fuck
does.
that. That doesn't sound right. But it really does make a big difference. When the other day in your squat, you did a 368-pound squat for like 3 sets of 4 reps. When you saw that written out from Hayden on a sheet of paper, that would probably cause a lot of anxiety months back, right? When you weren't able to break through.
Hmm.
How do you deal with it now when you see that? Because I think a lot of people, suffer from that. They see like 3 weeks from now they got to hit this certain bench, this certain squat or deadlift, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, am I gonna like?" We all know that the program will work. We know that like if we do it properly, that we will get stronger. But sometimes these numbers just make you scared.
Um, Absolutely. Well, when it comes to my training, I don't ever have a specific written number on my paper, so that particular scenario doesn't really happen.
Mm,
Um,
that probably helps a lot.
Yeah, it really does, because there's no expectations. I come to the gym, and I do the most that I can for that day.
Yeah, what is written down? Sets and reps, but no weight.
Exactly. So up to a top set of four, or three working sets of
Mm,
4 reps, and I just do the best that I can that
right.
day. I've just found that for me, at least, that's something that takes a lot of the anxiety out of the equation. You're not the expectations completely out of the equation. You don't have to perform any single way. Just by showing up to the gym that day, it's already a win. That's the way I see it. Regardless of whether I hit 80%, 70%, 60%, doesn't matter. The fact that I'm there doing the work is what matters the most.
You guys were mentioning at lunch that it's a lot of maximal stuff, and you got a lot of people nowadays talking about frequency and optimal weights and spreading fatigue, and you guys are kind of doing something different. The weights are heavier. What's the method to the madness?
Self-regulation more than anything. We say any day that we're feeling good, we're pushing it as heavy as we can go for that rep and set scheme for that day. But if Stefi or I go into the gym and we're not feeling like we're in a position to push hard, we'll take that into consideration as well. So it's not always just run yourself into the ground.
Right.
It's basically just self-regulating that. If you're
Yeah.
tired and it's not there, you don't push for it that day. And if you feel great, you go as hard as you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
auto-regulation is huge. I think that most people forget to take responsibility for their own programs, and place way too much importance on, or way too much reliance on their coach, on their program, on what's written, and forget to actually feel, hey, what's going on with me today? Like, you squeeze your hand, or like do a few jumps, or try to touch your toes and try to feel what's inside of your body. Like, that'll give you way more information for whether or not you can hit a certain lift, way more than what's written on a piece of paper by anyone. I don't care who the coach is.
Yeah, a lot of times people see that number and they're like, "This is what I need to do for the day," and they could still get great results by just reducing the weight a little bit,
Hmm.
by doing one less rep, one less set, something like that. If you're not feeling it, it's hard though. So how do you really check yourself? Is it kind of through the warm up process? I mean, you mentioned kind of squeezing your hands and moving around. Is it through the warm up process that you start to really learn about, like, okay, well, maybe I don't have it for today?
Yeah, a combination. So I usually look into previous sessions, especially the previous week. What was I able to do last week? Is that because usually it's predictive of what you can do in the following week. Then taking a look at how much work you did, how was your recovery, your sleep, your eating habits, your stress levels, like all of those things will play a role in what you can do the following week. And then yeah, simple things like just paying attention to how your body's feeling, but I think all of that in combination is the best predictor.
How do you deal with failing? Like when the workout is shitty, how do you deal with that? You just go home, or do you finish all the assistance exercise with the same enthusiasm as you would if you made the lift?
Yeah, that's one of the main changes that I've done since last year. You know, Stefi from a year ago or 2 years ago would have just quit the second that I couldn't lift it, or that I had a bad set or whatever that might be. I would have just quit and be extremely upset at whatever happened that day. But for me nowadays, like I said, the biggest accomplishment for the day is showing up to the gym and doing whatever you can do. So, you know, if it doesn't go my way, I might be upset I give myself 5 minutes. So I go outside, I cry, I scream, I do whatever I need to do for 5 minutes, and then I pretend like it never happened. Like I never failed that set. I never wasn't able to do something. To me, it was a complete success, that training. I just move on to the next lift, and I put a smile on my face. I put some music that I like, and that's it. I move on.
Short-term memory, just forget about it.
Exactly.
A lot of times missing a lift isn't that detrimental anyway. It's just a part of the training process, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add to what she said, I think it was interesting to see all of that work she had done on her mental game really paying off. Like, this was probably your most volatile, unpredictable training cycle ever going into the U.S. Open, and you had your best results.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if that was a year ago, there's no chance.
No,
you know, you would have. It definitely wouldn't have gone the way that it went. And even at the U.S. Open, I know you worked a lot on visualization, and one of the curveballs that she got thrown was missing the first two squat attempts. And normally in a competition, she'd be freaking out, and I'd have to be there really giving her additional support.
Right.
But this time I walked up to her, and she was like, "Don't worry, I've already visualized this. I know what I have to do. Like, I'm fine."
Yeah, so one of the strategies that I got taught was visualizing not only your successful outcomes, but also your unsuccessful outcomes. So
Right.
oftentimes, you know, we're so scared of even thinking about the possibility of something going wrong. Like we're almost superstitious to a point where you don't even want to think that something can go wrong. But with this technique, you visualize yourself failing, and you try to coach yourself through it before it happens. So, all right, you think about what's, to me, the worst thing that could happen is either missing a lift in the warm-up room or missing your first lift. That to me is a freaking nightmare. So I saw it happen before it even happened, and I told myself exactly how I was going to react and exactly what I was going to do, and that's what I did. I missed my first lift. I just, I pretended like it didn't happen. I went back, I sat down, and I tried again, and I missed my second one again. And I did the same thing. No panic, nothing. I just sat down and composed myself and nailed it on the third one.
200 kilos, 400 pounds, 441 pound squat. Pretty ridiculous. You know, I think visualization plays in big time. I think, obviously, you need both the heavy lifts. You need the power lifts. You need the bench, the squat, the deadlift, overhead press, bent over rows. Like we need a lot of these exercises to get bigger and stronger. And I've always said that the reason why assistance exercises are so effective is not really because of anything spectacular that they're doing. I mean, they can help with hypertrophy. They can kind of help everything else hold together. But I really think the beauty of exercises that aren't with a barbell are simply the fact that they're not with a barbell. Simply the fact that they're not breaking our bodies down. And also, the weights are lighter. Like even though you might take a heavy dumbbell press or something like that, and the weight might be heavy for you, it's still much lighter than a weight you're going to handle on a bench typically. If you were to do dumbbell stiff leg deadlifts or something like that, it'd probably be less weight than you would handle, and so on. And lat pull downs, are going to be less challenging than and pull-ups and some of these things, and it gives you an opportunity to actually visualize what it is that you're going to do on game day. And I advise that to every single person that listens to this show. That's stuff that you should be doing, because when you're doing a set of tricep pushdowns, it's not about your tricep necessarily, although you can visualize that as well and get some gains from that because you can get some hypertrophy. Think about your bench. Think about that failed bench press. Think about, how frustrated you were the last time you couldn't lock out your bench. And rather than just doing a set of 12 and not thinking about anything, run that shit through your head. And then tell me how you're doing, on your dumbbell, anything you're doing for your triceps. You're doing tricep extensions with dumbbells or with a heavy weight. Think about that bench that you missed. Run that through your head a bunch of times as you're doing the exercise, and that visualization will be a real positive thing when you go on the platform. Another thing that I think can really help a lot of people is, you mentioned visualizing, things that can happen that are bad. You mentioned, you also mentioned things that can happen that are good. Also, just visualize, like, what's it going to be like? Like, okay, I know that some people from Slingshot are going to be there. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I also know that, like, my arch nemesis is going to be there, mm-hmm. and that bitch beat me last time, or whatever the scenario is. Like, get yourself ready for all of that. Mm-hmm. I used to always think about the warm-up room. I would think about every single detail that I could, so I had it all mapped out in my head, so I didn't get there and go, mm-hmm. There was no surprises. I was mm-hmm. like, there's a potential that the warm-up room is outside. Mm-hmm. There's potential for all kinds of crazy. There's potential that they don't have a deadlift bar to warm up on in the back. There's going to be things that are out of your control, and I think it's good to run through all these things before you get to game day and shit your pants.
For sure. The more detailed, the better when you do these visualization techniques.